May 7th together. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we seek nominations for chairman of the board, I would like to congratulate Mr. Dion as our newest member of the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you.
Is there a motion for chairman?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Burbine for chairman.
Nomination for Mr. Burbine. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Are there any further nominations for chairman? Hearing none, I declare the nominations for chairman to be closed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
No
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you can pick up from there as I
Thank you.
stumble
Thanks, John.
along.
And thank you, fellow members, for your confidence. Hopefully I can live up to it. I'll now accept, what's that?
You better.
I'll now accept nominations for vice chairman. Okay, Mr. Coyle,
I'll nominate Mr. Franny.
is there a second to that?
Second.
Any other nominations? If not, I'll declare the nominations closed. All those in favor of Mike Franny as vice chairman, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank
Congratulations,
you.
Mike.
Do you want to sit here?
I'm fine.
Sure.
All right, then.
Nice knowing you. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Moving along. Public announcements, vacancy on the zoning board of appeals. There's still one vacancy, correct?
There's still one vacancy on the zoning board of appeals.
So we're looking for anybody who's interested. You can fill out your application, get it into the town manager's office. But it'd be great if we got a few applicants. We need people to serve, so.
And that's the only vacancy. The other write-ins came in and got sworn in,
Yeah.
so.
And we're gonna
Other
do
than the Board of Health.
Board of
in your
Health we're
next
gonna do
meeting.
next week.
Correct.
Public appointments. Oh, sorry.
Just one more.
I'm sorry.
If I could.
Yep, yep.
Also like to thank the business owners of North Abington and Center Abington Business District for the purchase of the new Welcome to Abington sign banners, which were recently hung in each center of each town district, if you will. And also to thank town resident Ron Mortimer, who had donated his personal and professional services to help with that installation. So we want to extend our congratulations to all involved.
Any other public announcements?
I'd just like to mention that last night I went to the ecumenical services. Some of the members did of the board last night in the 300th anniversary committee put together with all the neighborhood churches. It was at the United Church of Christ, and I just wanted to comment that it was very nicely done, and I think the people truly appreciate it. Was there. It was a very, very nice service, and it went well to honor our town, so thank you very much.
Actually, one more if
Yeah,
I
sure.
could. Yeah, I just also want to give thanks to former member and former chairman Chris Aiello, who it's very difficult when you serve in an elected position or volunteer your efforts for the town. And, you know, when you stand up for election, as I have on many occasions, I've won many and I've lost many. And I know the feeling well, and, you know, I just want to thank him for his service both on the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen.
Anything else on the public announcements? Okay, public appointments. This is for the vacancy on the Conservation Commission. And we have 3 applicants for 2 positions, is
Correct.
my understanding. And the first applicant is Dennis Bergen, and Dennis is here. Dennis, if you want to say a couple of words, feel free. It's up to you. Or if anybody has any questions from the board.
Maybe just if
Yeah.
he introduces himself.
Sure.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Dennis Bergen. I live at 71 Morton Street. Introduce myself. I've been here about 15 years as from my accent you'll know this is my adopted home. I have worked on one of your other boards as an appointed member. The Conservation Committee is something that I've always been very interested in. My background, I work as a lawyer, not to do with real estate, I should tell you. That's not really my background. It's civil litigation and immigration. But both those involve statutory readings as well as case law. So to prepare for your meeting, I did read the various water acts and all that, but I'm not an expert. My other interest is actually through my children as a Boy Scout, American Boy Scouts person, where I really learnt through the American Boy Scout program, Leave No Trace Behind, about the importance of conservation and indeed the importance of water to our community. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Thanks, Dennis.
Okay, thank you very
Dennis.
much. Thank you.
And the next applicant is James Dombrowski. Mr. Dombrowski is here. Jim, if you...
Jim Dombrowski, 28 Temple Street, and I'm very active with wetlands issues, particularly the Wetlands Protection Act and various other aspects of it. I had a background with the Conservation Commission back in the 80s. I was very active in very certain political projects. I served as a conservation officer in another town. My responsibility was to administer and enforce the Wetlands Protection Act. I've attended numerous seminars put out by DEP on wetlands issues, whether it's delineating or on enforcement. I've held a license for lead and asbestos abatement. I've held various situations where I was trained for licensed site professionals who are understanding hazardous waste sites. So I'm very familiar with the tier system. Like I said, I'm a lifelong resident of Abington. I'm very familiar with the resources in town and many of the problems that the town's facing.
Any questions of Mr. Dombrowski? Thank you, Jim. And the third applicant is Tim Warner.
How you doing? Tim Warner, 3 Fairview Ave. I lived in town my whole life. I own and operate a landscape business here in town. Like to give back to the town by serving on the committee if possible. I have a familiarity with conservation and wetland issues. Just like to be given the opportunity to serve back to the town.
Any questions of Mr. Warner? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have 3 applicants, 2 positions, unfortunately. Thank you all for applying, by the way. So we're not, obviously, there's going to be one that's not going to get the position, but thank you all for applying. So do I have any motions for particular individuals? Mr. Dion?
I make a motion to appoint Dennis P. Bergen.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second for Mr. Bergen. Any other motions?
Make a motion to appoint Tim Warner.
Motion for Mr. Warner. Is there a second to that?
I'll second for the purpose of discussion.
Second for that. Is there any other motions?
I'll make a motion to appoint Jim Dombrowski.
There's a motion to appoint Mr. Dombrowski. Is there a second to that?
Second.
And a second to that. Okay, so we have all 3 in the mix. Any discussion?
Perhaps, Mr. Chairman, maybe the easiest thing if we took a roll call and whoever gets the majority vote, from that standpoint. I think the issue before us, obviously, is we've got 2 people that have served on committees before. One, Mr. Dombrowski, has experience in conservation. Mr. Bergen has been a member of the Finance Committee, and Mr. Warner is new, to town from that respect, from as far as wanting to serve on not new to town, but new wanting to serve on a committee. So from that standpoint, I think they all bring their unique, attributes to the position, and, as you indicated, it's going to be a tough decision, and we hope that whomever the unsuccessful candidates are, that you're still interested, and there are many more positions open.
Yeah, there are many more positions. As I said tonight, there's even a position on the zoning board if anybody's interested in that too. So I think you're right, Kevin. I think the way to do it is we'll take a vote. You can only vote for 2. There's 3 spots here, so we can each vote for 2 people.
Well, how many openings are there?
Two.
Two.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
2 spots.
All righty.
So,
You were thinking one?
I was
so
uninformed.
So we'll take them in the order that the nominations were received. So all in favor of Mr. Bergen, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that's unanimous. All those in favor of Mr. Warner, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So that's 1, 2, 3. And all those in favor of Mr. Dombrowski, aye.
Aye.
So that's 2. Okay, so it's Mr. Bergen and Mr. Warner. Congratulations to you both. And you'll have to get sworn in by the town clerk. And thanks again for your service. And Jim, thank you. Okay, great, thanks. Okay, next on the agenda, action discussion items, discussion on town manager's request to seek other employment. And I believe Mr. Donovan had requested that that be put on the agenda.
I did, Mr. Chairman. I guess, well, where do I start? We have an April 25th letter from the town manager indicating he would like permission to seek employment elsewhere. There's been various and sundry comments in the newspaper attributable, to the town manager, and then on April 26th, we had an email apologizing for those statements, and then there was obviously some newspaper coverage as a result thereof. Most recently, we received a report from the Board of Assessors over the last couple of days with some of their complaints. And I think on this particular issue, it really should be handled in no matter different than what you would ordinarily do in a standard administrative practice. I think ordinarily if something comes to light, if somebody complains about somebody, or if there are questions in terms of contractual issues, usually you refer them to town council to get an opinion based on fact, not emotion, but based on fact, based on the law and what's supportable by the law. And I think this should be the same thing that happens in this particular instance, because we have to be consistent, regardless of whether it's the town manager, a department head, or an employee. And my concern is if we're not consistent, then we open ourselves up down the line. If an employee, is going to be disciplined, they can point to something that wasn't followed. So in this particular case, obviously, we have town council that works very closely with the town manager and the Board of Selectmen. So I think it really incumbent that we should have a special labor council come in to review the matter and then sit and meet with the board in determination as to what this independent review would be. I would suggest, I've used in prior employment when I was involved in a situation, I wanted somebody independent. I went to a particular firm that had no connection with the town and had not worked with anybody, and I would propose that in this particular case as well. For the purpose of discussion, I would make a motion, so we can get it at least on the table to discuss it, that we hire Paul Hodnett from the firm of Rubin and Rudman to review the matter for us, to be able to meet with us no later than, I would say, May 21st. That gives council enough time based on his schedule, and it gives us enough time to schedule our own issues and then be able to meet with them. But I think it's important that it be done, again, void of emotion and strictly on the facts, and the facts that are supportable by and consistent with the law. So with that, I will make that motion, and I'm open for any questions based on that.
Does anybody want to make a second to the
I'll
motion?
second that motion for discussion.
Mr. Dion seconds, and any discussion?
The only thing is, I wholeheartedly concur with Kevin that there's a lot of comment about it. I've fielded a lot of questions. I'm not certain myself what to do, and I think that an outside independent look at the situation would be the right approach. So I wholeheartedly endorse what Mr. Donovan has proposed.
Anybody else? Mr. Coyle?
Would this fall under the bidding? Do we have to go out to bid for this?
No.
We don't have to.
No.
My
Yes, Tom?
question, Kevin, would be, if this independent counsel was not available, what may be our backup plan?
Well, I mean, obviously, what I have done, and when I contacted Mr. Hodnett, I said, look, this is what my proposal is. I have no idea what the board is, and I have no authority to do anything more than ask you if you're available. He would be available. We targeted a couple of dates. We were looking at originally May 21st. He had maybe 2 other dates available. I think to be fair to him, to get him all the information, it's probably more prudent to allow for the May 21st date.
For him to have his
But-
report complete?
Yes, for him to come back.
Because we have a town meeting that night also.
Well, that's what I was just going to say, is we could meet earlier that night if everybody's schedule is such, so that we could get his review of the facts. You obviously are going to have questions of him, and then, we have that opportunity, perhaps 5 or 5:30, to sit down and discuss with him. And then, it may end there, it may not, I don't know. I mean, it's all, again, based on what the review would be. So I think that should be the initial phase.
So we'll be asking him to review the facts of the case?
Would you be
and
looking at, ask him to review what's been in the public record, what the issues related to what the assessors have brought forward, what does the contract say? I mean, I've done many of these investigations myself, and you compile the record, you look at what has said, you may interview people, you may not. It depends on, what are the facts there, and what is the determination. And it may be that from a cursory look at the public record, looking at the contract, he may be able to come in and say, look, I think this, that may be the end of it, or I think that, and maybe it's got to go further. I don't know. I'm just saying that would be incumbent upon this person, if it's approved, to make those judgmental calls.
And this council has experience in municipal?
He's a municipal labor attorney.
Any other questions? I do concur with Kevin. I think we need to do something like this, not only just to protect the town's interests, which I think we need to do, but also to protect Mr. D'Agostino's privacy interests and that sort of thing, too. I mean, he has some stake in this also.
Oh, positively. And that's why I say that's why you do this, because there are 2 parties involved, and you want to get down to the facts, and you want to get,
Well, you want to make sure it's done
we
correctly.
make sure it's done correctly, so that nobody is trampled upon, and nobody says, anything from our standpoint that is prejudicial, and we're just going to deal with it as you normally would in any issue. So I don't see this as anything other than what you would do in the normal course of looking at a complaint that anybody brought to your attention.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second, and the investigation will include a review of the town manager's contract.
Yeah, I think I would call it an inquiry.
Inquiry.
And a review of the record. I think
Yeah.
you're looking at what's been in the
Statements.
contract itself, what's been
Yep.
in the public record, what the assessors have, indicated to us, and, and that he may or may not have questions from that standpoint. But I think the initial stage is get it at that, meet with us, and then we see where we go.
Okay, all right. Do you have any questions?
I would just, for a matter of disclosure purposes, that in my prior employment, we have retained the firm of Rubin and Rudman.
You have?
Yes.
Okay. Does that concern you?
Unless it's been specifically to this attorney, I know I asked him that question. He was going to send out, a firm-wide email. I have not,
It was with the Municipal Light Department.
the light department.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And they were the attorney of record for the Light Department, which I was a manager of the Light Department.
Okay. I still don't think it's material, but
No? I mean, there are other attorneys out there who do this
there
sort of
are,
thing.
if there's an issue, then, obviously we can get somebody else, but, he, when I spoke with him, he saw no connection at that point in time.
How long ago was that, John?
Geez, it has to go back from 98 to probably 2006 or 7, something like that.
Okay. All right. Oh, we'll
I'm not quite sure of the dates.
Okay. Well, thanks for disclosing that. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? It's unanimous. Item number 2 is a discussion of the fiscal year 2013 budget. Maybe you can update us, John, as to where things stand.
I think there's been a number of emails that have gone
There
back
have
and
been.
forth about that. It appears as though we have a balanced budget. However, it may not appear so today. We had a early morning meeting at 8 o'clock this morning with the school committee regarding the school's request to add $130,000 to the budget to hire some additional staff people for class size reduction in the elementary school level. So as I look at the budget, based on the town manager's recommendation and that of the finance committee, we have a balanced budget with approximate surplus of $11,703. The $130,000 that would be added to the budget would be contingent upon the town finance team and the school superintendent working out an agreement as to how we can proceed with the $130,000, if there's any way that we can do that in light of the issues set forth in the sense that they want to add, additional personnel. The money has to come from somewhere. Where does it come from? And we expect to have a good free cash number in the fall, not an exceedingly high one, but, a good free cash number. And if we do have a free cash number, it would help towards alleviating that problem. We did this morning discuss the structural deficit that will exist in FY 14 of approximately $350,000 from the AARA grant program, the federal grant program that went to hiring teachers. And of course, the school department used that money prudently. They're in the last year of that use. However, that's an expansion of the base without recurring revenue of $350,000. In addition to that, you add the $130,000 to that number to increase the base again. Then that's a significant increase in the base. My perspective is that that may be unsustainable, depending upon what happens in our efforts to have a trash program that's going to save us $340,000, or the insurance issue with the employees as to whether or not they are going to remain with plan design. There's a meeting scheduled Tuesday with some of the union presidents regarding that plan as to whether or not they want to look at a different makeup, which would give us the money sooner under option 8 than it would if we went with plan design. Plan design has certain upfront costs that have to be incurred, about $114,000 for a health account to defray some of the increases in co-payments, and option 8 gives us the money in FY 13 as opposed to FY 14. So having said that, I think that there is certainly a level of uncertainty with the budget, and whether or not we have the ability to balance the budget at the end of the next couple of weeks is, I think, something that the superintendent and the finance team is going to work on to try to get resolved.
Questions?
Yeah, I guess with that said then, I guess the question then is, we're meeting next week, I still
Correct.
believe. would it be more prudent to wait to see how their meetings go? And then I guess I'd be more concerned if what action, if any, the school committee takes, and maybe, have it on the agenda, if that's all right, Mr. Chairman, for the next week's meeting, to say if hopefully some meeting of the minds will have taken place and the school committee will have taken some action, so then we'd be more informed as to what position we want to take at that stage of the game.
Yeah, I think it should be on there next week anyways. Yeah. But if anybody has any questions on where we are at this point,
I
feel
think
free
the only thing no.
No? Never mind. Tom?
Yeah, John, I just had a question. I think there might be a discrepancy in uses of funds with the allowance for abatement and exemption between the Board of Assessors and the town manager's budget. I think, as I understand, in FY 2013, we've allocated $352,055.
Well, 48,000 less than they had requested.
Yeah,
That's
so
correct.
does that put us in a deficit, or how are we going to
Well,
address that?
I think we had discussed this, previously. This is what, when I looked at the numbers with respect to the 400,000 that had been requested, I had looked at the prior 3 years of abatements and exemptions and ATB cases and whatever, and according to state statute, you're allowed to average those 3 years, which we did, and came up with 352,000. Looking back at some of the recommendations, from my understanding from the deputy assessor, there was a period of time that there were a lot of uncertainty in the Board of Assessors. Values were all over the place. There was a lot of uncertainty with respect to the validity of those values, and as a result of that, there was a lot of cases that came forth as a result. However, in my discussions with Jack Pistorino, now that he's been involved in this process for the past 4 or 5 years, he has asked the Board of Assessors to lower that $400,000 number, and I thought that at this point in time, the 352 number, given the stability of the abatements and exemptions and the values that are more accurate now than they really have ever been, would suffice. Apparently, that obviously is not the case. If you look further down at the overlay budget deficit, you will see that there is an amount of $101,567 in overlay deficit, which means that the town is obligated, one way or another, to pick up those costs if there is not enough money in the overlay account. Of the 101,000, 22,000 of that is for prior year ATB settlements that go back a number of years. It would be prudent for the Board of Assessors to and the ATB process to be sped up as quickly as possible, so that we don't have that much interest that is owed on top of the deficit that already exists. So the 300, in my opinion, the 352,000 is an average of the past 3 years. On the advice of the deputy assessor to his own board, that we could lower that number because there is some stability with respect to abatements, which I think is a good thing, that that number should be sufficient. However, if the board wants the 400,000, then we'll look at reducing the budget somewhere else, or the Board of Assessors can petition the Department of Revenue for to allow for that money to be raised in the
I think
recap.
my question was more, and I think you've done a good job of due diligence and going through averaging, taking a look at the history, but it's my understanding that the Board of Assessors, it's not our number, it's the Board of Assessors number, and that if it does come down to, we can't resolve it or come to agreement, and that $400,000 sticks, then we've got a deficit of $46,000 that...
It's only a deficit if they use it all. And what, last year there was an overlay surplus of 62,000.
Could I make perhaps one suggestion then? I think the methodology John is using is correct. The problem that I see is Department of Revenue sets out what they call IGRs, and this particular IGR on overlay and overlay surpluses, they make it clear that it's the Board of Assessors. So I think maybe clarification needs to take place with the Director of Accounts. I think if you're using there's no question in my mind you're using the correct methodology. I think that the simpler question then is it the Board of Assessors' sole authority? And if DOR is going to look at that, my only fear would be they wouldn't certify the tax rate based on that. So I guess if the assessors aren't willing to reduce that number, then I think maybe you need clarification from DOR. And I think if the clarification falls to the issue that the assessors control, then I guess we've got to adjust ourselves accordingly. And I guess that's the other issue of maybe we can discuss next week if we can work that out in the interim, and then we'll just have to see where it goes. Maybe one last ask, just as a suggestion, the deputy assessor give it one more college try, and if the answer is still no, then perhaps the Director of Accounts could clarify, their position on the issue from that standpoint.
Any other questions on the, I had a few, John. Does this include any new hires, where the budget stands now? Does it include any new hires?
Again, for as many years as I have been here, it includes the two new hires are for highway, but all of the proposed raises or adjustments that we had proposed to make will not, again, we're not going to be able to make those adjustments. And so therefore, we do not believe that if we made those adjustments, that this budget in future years would be sustainable, including the $130,000. Oh, excuse me, and we did increase a part-time person, which I think I had provided information on to the board about hiring a part-time office person to do the office management in the event that Mark Shirokas is out for an extended period of time. And we hired an acting assistant director to help Mark out due to his physical limitations. So we've made reasonable accommodation for him, and those are the only areas in the budget for which we see any kind of an increase.
I did notice on the data processing that's gone up substantially, the data processing budget. Just speak to that.
I think that a lot of what is occurring in data processing is, before we had a department, a network administration department, most of this money was carried in other aspects of the budget, whether it was in the town manager's budget or in the building budget with respect to phones or other such technologies. We have now taken all of that and put it under one budget. So while it may look like it's an increase, what it is an actual shifting of monies. There is some, increases as it relates to software support that we need for the softwares that we're running, including KVS, which is an additional amount of money. There's a little money in there, I think about $5,000 for some small equipment upgrades if necessary. We did reduce the network administrator's budget quite a bit. We eliminated the rotation and replacement of the servers because the servers that we're currently using we bought them secondhand, and they're approximately 10 years old. And the life expectancy for servers is usually right about the 10-year mark. And so we didn't buy them new, and so because we bought them used, we're going to need to replace them sooner. And my recommendation would be to replace them with new equipment that is reliable. We've had some glitches with the software, and we think some of that is due to the age of the servers that we're currently using. In that budget, in the network administrator's budget, I believe there was, what, $30 some odd thousand increase? There was about a $30,000 increase to replace, on a life cycle basis, some of the servers. And so consequently, that is something that we need to pay attention to, if not this year, at some point in the future. But most of the increases are due to the fact that we're on a upgrade for software improvement or enhancement with the existing hardware that we have. For example, when I got here, we were still using the beta version of the software program for the phones. That's why the phones were not as reliable as they were. We built that number into last year's budget. We're carrying it forward. So there's a lot of those issues that we need to address from a software perspective so that we receive support and upgrade. For example, there's $14,000 in the budget for technical support for the website. And those are expenditures that I think are necessary, that we need to have in order to keep our information updated, and as well as the technology. And that's about it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Tom?
I just had one on the special, John, the first article, the lead office, the FEMA, the new map. Will the residents be able to see the old map and the new map to compare what areas in the town are now considered part of the new FEMA, let's call it rezoning or whatever you want to call it?
We have there's 6 FEMA maps, and it's for all of Plymouth County. It's not just Abington. And so we would have to, we will provide them at town meeting. We do not believe that there is a significant change in the designation for the floodplain itself. This is a process where if we don't accept it, the residents who are in a floodplain will not be eligible for flood insurance. That's the primary reason for doing it. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, because I was a little bit more concerned. I thought what the federal government has been doing with the flood maps, including more and more areas within the United States, and as part of that was that if you are considered your property in a floodplain, then you have to buy the flood insurance to basically pick up homeowners insurance. Could be wrong on that, but I just would think as a resident, I'd want to know if my property now was part of the new floodplain and I've got additional insurance requirements.
The floodplain maps will be available at town meeting. We'll have them on some boards.
Any other questions on the budget? Okay, moving on. Town manager report. John?
I don't have anything to report tonight other than I'll be on medical leave from May 25th for about 2 weeks.
You said the unions are meeting again on the insurance, so that's not a done deal yet as far as the plan design actually being implemented. They're still trying to,
Well, we're not involved in that at this point, so I can't tell you if it's a done deal or not. I assumed last week it was a done deal until I received an email that said, well, we're going to
Maybe
give it
not.
one last try on Tuesday. It's my understanding that the department heads, the union presidents and their lawyers will be meeting Tuesday to see if they can't indeed hammer out, some sort of an agreement.
aren't you under some time constraints, or to notify people as to changes in insurance?
Well,
and that sort of thing?
May is the time period for which we then determine plan design. It's whether or not they're going to take Plan A, B, or C. So the longer we wait before people take that action, the more intense it's going to be to get those people enrolled in a shorter period of time. Ideally, we would have liked to have had the time to do that as of May 1st, but, this obviously isn't a perfect world. And unfortunately, I think that we, the town, is trying to give the unions as much latitude in trying to make the right decision for the employee. And we're hoping that on Tuesday that can be established.
Thanks. Any message, any questions?
I just want to say, I think Mr. Jaggis, we had the fire department here one evening, we spoke to them, and did go back and try to do what's in the best interest of the town and the employees, and I think you did a lot of work for that. That's good. So hopefully we can settle the issue.
Well, I hope so too. I think that from an employee perspective, we think, and we could be wrong, that option 8 is a better plan for the employee that also provides us with about $500,000 in savings. And like I said, the difference between plan design and option 8, and most of us know what option 8 is, but it's the 70-30, 50-50 for the PPO plan. That savings in and of itself, we would realize in FY13 as opposed to FY14 under plan design. So the amount of money, the difference in savings between the two plans is about $50,000 or $60,000 better under option 8 than what we currently have. The difference is in the timing of when that money becomes available.
Sound good?
Isn't the enrollment period up this Friday, May 11th?
No, it's the 24th.
Oh, it's the 24th, okay. Thank you.
That it, under town manager's report? Moving along, selectmen, old, new business. Mr. Donovan.
I just have two, if I could. I understand, actually, before Kenny and I came on the board, that the board had developed some policies. By rights, I'm just thinking that any time the board reorganizes, we should probably relook at them and revote
That was
those.
something I was going to bring up.
Okay,
also,
if
yeah.
not, I realize we've got town meeting coming up, so sometime in June or July, it's no big hurry. And secondly, every year we appoint one selectman to serve on the Plymouth County Advisory Board. I did it last year, and usually it goes to the newest members, so.
According to?
We'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
So moved.
Well, I think
I think-
between now, the Plymouth County Advisory Board, I think you may have to do now because the budget is coming up pretty soon, I think. So I'll make a motion.
Plymouth
to put
County
Mr.
budget?
Dion on as the Plymouth County
My only
budget.
thought is, the new open meeting law suggests that this sort of stuff you're supposed to have in advance. and-
Very true.
Right.
But we have it on this, all right, well,
All right, and the whole old new business thing kind of concerns me, only because.
we'll take it off. Yeah.
Well,
I agree with you. If we're going to, in the past, we have taken action under selectmen old new business that perhaps we shouldn't be. And I would agree that if we're, for the future, we should perhaps not have that on there.
Or I was thinking if it's still on there, maybe it's just to raise an issue so we can put it on the agenda for the next meeting, something like that. But,
Either that, we can, then, it falls into the question of the policies and procedures. I think in the past, any selectman that wanted something on the agenda would put something on the agenda and you'd simply put their initials beside it, so you knew, who had
Yeah,
brought
that's
it
in
up.
those policies and procedures.
I don't know, I haven't seen them. So if that still holds true, then I don't see any reason to keep open
Holding the
business.
business, yeah. So we'll put that on for the 14th? It's only a week away.
True.
And I accept the nomination, so.
I'll make
Just
sure
as a
you're here next
matter
week.
of
That's right. Are you
record,
gonna be here?
the
Yeah.
Plymouth County budget is on the town website.
Oh, good. Just a question. The other night, you had a meeting with the Board of Health and members from the Condominium Association, and were we gonna follow up, or was there gonna be a follow-up meeting? I couldn't hear at the end of it. There was,
Yeah, there is going to be a follow-up meeting. The problem, I think really boils down to, a couple of things, and one is that there's 5 condo units that are involved where those units receive a service that the other condo units do not receive. And I think that what we tried to do was to get all of the condo units on the same page, which was that if we're going to a 2-barrel limit, one for trash and one for recycling, that of the 4,300 households, everyone that's receiving this 2-barrel program would be living under one set of rules and regulations, while the condo association will be living under a different set of regulations and rules, because their pickup is done through dumpsters. So there is a certain amount of issues with respect to that. The other issue was the issue of being able to access to condo units, which are really unaccepted public ways, to pick up, the barrels. And of course, in all the units, that's not possible. So in speaking with council, there was a definitive, at least determination from council's perspective, that if the town decided not to pick up condo units, that it was a decision that the town could make, that there was no such thing as grandfathering in condos for a particular service. The only concept for grandfathering is obviously in the zoning board, where the zoning board can, based on decisions that they make, can grandfather properties into, the zoning regs, the new zoning regs that are established. So there is none, there's no concept of grandfathering in contracts or otherwise. So the way we had left it was that we were going to try to get all of the condo association people together and see if the town could not facilitate a bid process for them to receive a lower cost for all of the condo units, rather than having them go off individually in contract with, a provider, which may or may not give them a better rate than they could get if they had joined forces together. So we had discussed that, and that we had also indicated that because some of the contracts are on calendar years versus fiscal years, that the town would, until January, continue providing the service if necessary for that 6-month period, until they can transition to all receiving the same service and be treated the same.
just, it seemed to be a feeling of there was a lack of communication, whether that's true or not true. So probably my question is, I heard these people, and I'm very honest with you, a lot of them said when I bought my condominium, I bought it with rubbish picked up, and now, it was a perk and it's going to be taken. I can understand that, but whose decision is it, how, you said we were going to follow up with another meeting, is that something, it's the Board of Health's decision? Is that something that the meeting will be held with them? Do they negotiate it? Do we negotiate it? Or how do we proceed from here to, alleviate the a genuine concern from a homeowner of a condominium that where do I go from here? How's that meeting going to take place, and is it through the Board of Health?
I was going to send a notice to the condo association. When we had discussed this issue, when it was originally proposed not to pick up the condos and voted accordingly, that the town would work with the condo association to see if we can't get a better price per condo per pickup than what they currently have. And that's what we intend to do.
Anything else? Mr. Coyle?
I attended that meeting the other night with the condo, and it was some very upset people. It was packed. I had to park at the high school. There was a lot of people here. And I left the meeting, and I put some notes together, because I think I have a unique perspective of being on the Board of Health and working with the trash. So I'd like to read this. This is what my thoughts of the meeting, and this is what I would recommend the Board of Health do. I mean, our board obviously has no say in the matter, but I think it's important that, because at that meeting, you only heard one side. You heard the condo owners, and they had some very valid points. So I think the condo owners of the affected condos have some very valid points. These condo units were bought with the knowledge and the assumption that they receive municipal trash pickup outside of their condo fees. When the town held 2 override votes exclusively for the purpose of funding Abington's trash pickup, those residents of those condo units voted with the knowledge that they would still be receiving trash pickup using the tax monies that they voted to increase. The other side of the coin is that as a homeowner in Abington, as I am, I have certain rules that I must follow to have trash picked up at my house. I have to make sure that I store my trash all week, and I drag it out to the curb on trash day, tonight. I also have to bring out my recycling. I must recycle, or my trash will not be picked up. The amount of trash that I put out is fairly limited, and it's becoming more limited. Only what I can squeeze into my new 64-gallon cart will be picked up. Large items, excessive trash will not be picked up at my house unless I pay a fee. There are going to be even more rules as of July 1st. If you note on the website, I have to make sure that the new automated truck has unobstructed access to these carts. My carts must be placed at least 4 feet from obstacles such as utility poles, mailboxes, trees, parked cars. Carts must be within 2 feet of the curb edge. Carts must be placed at least 3 feet apart from each other. If I live on a one-way or a dead-end street, my carts have to be placed on the left-hand side of the street. These are things that now or will soon be required by every homeowner in Abington to receive municipal trash pickup. The Board of Health through the years has made numerous changes to the trash policies of the town in an attempt to keep pace with the skyrocketing costs associated with trash removal. Mandatory recycling, lowering limits on the amount of trash allowed, adding fees for excess trash or larger items, discontinuing yard waste removal. These are all things that have had an impact on most of the residents of Abington. I believe that the condo owners have mostly been unaffected by these changes. I think that if these condo owners can live by the same rules and restrictions that the more than 4,000 single, 2- and 3-family homeowners here in Abington are required to adhere to, I think that their trash should also be picked up. I would urge the Board of Health to reconsider their vote that uniformly denied the grandfathered condo units trash service. My hope in this matter is that the Board of Health can meet individually with each of these affected condo complexes and work with them to see if they have the desire and the ability to make the changes that are necessary to receive the town's new automated trash pickup. So those are my personal feelings. We can put on the agenda for next week if the board, or my intent is to send this to the Board of Health. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Tom?
Just as far as some of the emotion that was displayed the other night, I do have a couple of letters, and I can understand how they would be upset. And this goes back to August 28th, 1991, to then Chairman of the Assessors, John Waliski, from then Chairman of the Board of Health, Richard Kavanaugh, in which he states, all condominiums are individually owned residents. It was the Board of Health's interpretation that condominium complexes established in the town as of September 1st, 1991 should be eligible for trash pickup under the town contract. And then there's a Board of Health meeting to clarify that on October 3rd, 1992, where it says residents, add the phrase, all condominium complexes established in the town of Abington as of September 1st, 1991 shall be considered single-family units. Inclusion of any additional complex is subject to the approval of the Board of Health. So I can understand why they would be upset in, this concept of grandfathering. And I would support Kenny's, feelings that I think in the spirit of fairness, for 30 years or so, or 20 years we've picked it up. I think we should continue to do that. I know it creates some issues, but I would also say that I think, and I could be wrong, but I would ask the planning board, when a condominium development, I think, needs to file with the planning board, I think there could be deed restrictions in these other condos that have come in that specifically says that Abington will not pick up your trash. But these folks were included in politically or whatever, it was an attempt to pass at least the first override back in 92, 93, Mike. And then I can recall Phil Warren getting up on town meeting floor in 2006, 2007 and said, if you vote this additional amount for $600,000, this will cover the residents that are on it now for another 8 or so years. And for me, I think the Board of Health has done a tremendous job driving down the cost. That $1.2 million that we voted in 2 separate overrides, I think this year the Board of, or the Chairman of the Board of the Health is correct. He'll be turning back $45,000. So for the first time in 6, 7 years, our trash budget will be under $1 million. And I think in the spirit of fairness, I think these condos, should be included. Just my personal view.
Anything else under old, new business? Yes, Ken?
We received an email back in April, and I'm not sure if Tom knows about this, but someone asking a name change for a road. And I'm not sure, we received a response back from Ken, and I'm not sure how that stands, if we have to approve it, or does it automatically go back to the list of veterans, or how that works?
I couldn't hear you.
There was a request to have a road named in,
I thought this body, some time ago, passed I don't know if it was a resolution or a policy or a procedure that roads would be named after veterans.
Veterans only, I think, was the policy. Again, if you want to put that on the agenda for a future meeting, that's fine, but
You would be making an exception, I think, if,
I think you're right. I do believe you're right.
Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna ask that one thing be put on the agenda for next meeting also.
You're the chairman. You can
It's
do
your
whatever you want.
agenda.
No, it's not my agenda, it's
It is
our
your
agenda, it's our agenda. So,
Surprise us.
you want me to surprise you? Okay, I'll surprise you. Anything else?
Nope.
If not,
Move
we
we
have a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn. There's a motion. Is there a
Move we
second?
adjourn.
Second?
Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye. First meeting, and
Adjourn.
we're very
Thank
good.
Yeah,
Very
exactly.
good.
Mr. Chairman,
We're adjourned, sorry.
well, Andy,